Who is the best strongman of the 1980s? Welcome back, strongman fans, to what is destined to be a great video, because we just get to talk about strongman, we just get to nerd out about it just a little bit. And guys, don't forget that at 1,000 subscribers, I am doing a giveaway of approximately £100. We're just shy of 400 at the moment, and I believe that if we all pull together, we can hit 1,000 before the year is out. I'm working very hard on this channel to bring you content that you enjoy. And when this is posted, the chances are I will be in Iceland getting more content. It's like 8 o'clock at night and we're flying at 7 in the morning in less than 12 hours. And here I am making content for you guys. But anyway, let's talk about the 1980s, because for me, the 1980s is really where strongman found its feet a little bit. And the 1980s is potentially the greatest period in strongman, or I should say that it could have been the greatest period in strongman. We'll get into the reasons why it could have been the greatest period in just a little bit, so make sure you stick around for that. Now, the 1980s really had three main people that we need to talk about. That being Bill Kazmaier, Jón Páll Sigmarsson, and Jeff Capes. So they are the ones that we will talk about the most, but firstly, we need to talk about a few others that they definitely deserve a mention. Firstly is Lars Hedlund. He was third in 78, second in 79, and then second again in 1980. Now, of course, I could have spoke about him in the 1970s video, but I really wanted that to be much more about Don Reinhardt, and I've forgotten his name. Bruce Wilhelm, of course, the inaugural winner of the World's Strongest Man. But 1980 was the last time that we saw Lars Hedlund compete, but he competed in World's Strongest Man 3 times. He got third place, a second place, and another second place. So he definitely deserves a mention. And next up, we have a Canadian by the name of Tom McGee, one of the smaller athletes, especially if you compare them to this day and age, but just a smaller athlete in general. And one thing that I really like about Tom McGee is that he competed with such heart, such emotion. And that's something that I respect, that you're going out there and you're putting it all on the line. You've got that do or die energy. So big shout out to Tom McGee, who came second in 1981, I believe it was. Ab Wolders is another one that I want to talk about. He competed in 9 strongman contests and he was always up there. He placed second in 3 of them and third in another 3 of them. So what's that, like 66% of the time he was on the podium of the 9 contests that he competed in. Now look, I've got 2 more people that I want to talk about before going on to the main 3. One of them being Big Jamie Reeves. Jamie Reeves is probably one of the most underrated and underappreciated strongmen of all time, to be honest. He competed from 1988 all the way through till 1999, so 11 years in the sport, and that's a good career for even this day and age, but for back then, that was a long time to stick around in the sport of strongman. He won World's Strongest Man in 1989, and he was second in 1992. Now, I can never remember if it was him or Gary Taylor that failed to make the final when the group stages were introduced. I can never remember. It was one of them. But either way, he was a great strongman. He competed in Britain's Strongest Man 3 times and won it twice, so that's pretty good. If we just look at the stats, he did 42 competitions over the 11 years, and he was on the podium 23 times, so more than 50%. Admittedly, 2 of those shows only had 3 people competing, but he won one of them and came second in the other. But even if we take those away, he's still on the podium over 50% of the time, which is a great record. The last person that we need to talk about before going on to the main 3 is O.D. Wilson, the real winner of World's Strongest Man in 1990. Now, he should really be in the video that I do about the 1990s. However, he feels much more symbolic to the 1980s, I don't know if that's the right word, but either way, he was a rightful champion in 1990. It is possibly the biggest robbery that we have ever seen in the sport of strongman. It's either that or Alexei Novikov not getting to the final of World's Strongest Man in 2019 because he lost on the stones to Trey Mitchell. That was a big, big robbery. I know that's a sport. I know that's the way it goes. But Alexei should have been in the final, and he won it the next year, so bit of a shame there. Anyway, if you somehow don't know what happened in 1990, then I suggest you go and watch it. Essentially, they changed the last event so that Jón Páll Sigmarsson would win it and O.D. Wilson would not, because Jón Páll was the poster boy. He was the biggest name in the sport. And now look, I'm a massive, massive fan of Jón Páll Sigmarsson. I think he was a great athlete. I think he could have gone down as one of the best anyway, without a bit of a helping hand. But that 1990 World's Strongest Man final it's ridiculous. And on the topic of that and controversy surrounding the World's Strongest Man, it brings me to my point about why the 80s could have been the best period we ever had, but it wasn't the best period that we ever had. And the reason being is that we could have seen Bill Kazmaier, Jeff Capes, and Jón Páll Sigmarsson going head to head for 6, 7, 8 years. However, after 82, they banned Kaz from competing because he was so dominant. And then they didn't allow him back until 1988, where he still placed second. In 1987 Pure Strength, I've heard stories that, again, the events were hand-picked, or cherry-picked, maybe you should say, to not suit Bill Kazmaier and more to suit Jón Páll Sigmarsson. So it's a bit of a shame, really, because to me, Bill Kazmaier is still the strongest man to ever walk the planet. That is truly what I believe. And I genuinely think that if they hadn't banned him from World's Strongest Man after he won it 3 years in a row and was the most dominant champion we've ever seen, then I think he could have, not easily, but he would have had 5, probably 6 World's Strongest Man titles, and that would be the number that everybody's chasing. Obviously, we have Mariusz Pudzianowski with 5, but we had the IFSA split and everything like that. Bill Kazmaier was that good that they had to ban him, because what you got to remember is that, especially back then, it was much more of a TV show. It's still a TV show today, and people complain about it, but back then, it really was a TV show. So if every single year you just have one guy walking away with the competition, it's not as interesting. I think people sort of know that anyway. When you look at Mitch Hooper, a lot of fans say that it's just not as interesting as it could be because we almost know the outcome before it starts and you want to see a tight battle. But it still doesn't change the fact that if Bill Kazmaier had been there, it would have been much more interesting. But anyway, let me know what you think about Bill Kazmaier being banned and whether you think Bill Kazmaier was the greatest strongman ever or is the greatest strongman ever in the comment section down below. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about Jeff Capes. He won it twice. I can't remember the years off the top of my head, but he is a 2-time winner of the World's Strongest Man, and he is one of the greatest British strongmen that we've ever seen. He did a lot of Highland Games and stuff like that as well, and he really was an icon of strength in Britain during that period of time. If you ask a lot of older people, obviously I speak to people all the time, and if I say to somebody that doesn't know what strongman is, if I say, oh, I do strongman, I watch strongman and I make content on it, they're like, oh, strongman, Jeff Capes. That's always the name they go to first. They don't go to Tom Stoltman or Eddie Hall. They always go to Jeff Capes because everybody knows that name. And then we have Jón Páll Sigmarsson, 4-time winner of the World's Strongest Man. In my opinion, probably should be a 2-time winner of World's Strongest Man. And like I say, I'm a massive fan of Jón Páll. If anything, he's probably my favourite strongman just because of the way that he was. He was the showman as well as the athlete, and I think that's a massive part of it. And you can see why Jón Páll Sigmarsson was the sort of face of strongman instead of Bill Kazmaier. It does make a lot of sense. And either way, on the record books, he's got 4 titles. He was a great strongman. Do not get me wrong. I'm not trying to say he wasn't a great strongman, by the way. I'm not saying that at all. And look, like I said, he really was the face of strongman during that time. There's so many iconic moments of him doing the deadlift and him saying the famous, there's no reason to be alive if you can't do deadlifts. Him pulling, was it Grizzly? Was it? Chucking him in the water when they had to do a tug of war with the water in between them. The car rolling, he just had to flip it onto its side and he slid and hit into it. Was it like the first time that we saw, weren't even Atlas stones, were they McGlashan stones or something? I think it was the first time that we saw round balls of concrete, essentially Atlas stones, in competition, and he has just threw them straight on. I think that was in 1988, I want to say. Could be wrong, that's off the top of my head. But there's just so many iconic moments of Jón Páll Sigmarsson. Another one is he broke the ropes and too much power. I'm pretty sure that was Jón Páll. That was definitely Jón Páll when he was doing the pull. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But if you don't know much about older strongman events, 1980s, especially as we're talking about today, go and check them out and you'll love it. It's great to watch. And the last man that we have already spoke about is Bill Kazmaier, who, like I said, for me, is one of the strongest men to ever walk the planet. He doubled the max deadlift event in World's Strongest Man because everyone else was complaining that he wasn't fully locking it out. So he just did the biggest weight of all and did it for 2. If you watch the keg loading, where it's like 12 or maybe even 16 kegs, weighing about 70, 80 kilo, I think they were, just everyone else picking them up on their shoulder, putting them on, blah. He was literally just launching them from 2 meters away. It's absolutely ridiculous. His log pressing, when they were doing it on real wooden logs that were just trees with handles cut out of them. I think he did 165. There's a lot of pro strongmen now that would still struggle with that, and he's just picking it up and chucking it overhead. The amount of strength that that man had is ridiculous. When you, I don't know, I don't follow powerlifting, so whatever his powerlifting record was, I know it stood for a very long time. I'm pretty sure he benched like 300 or something with a torn pec. I'm pretty sure he tore his pec and still benched it. I know he tore his pec or his bicep when they were doing the bar bending, and just went into the wrestling, and they had like sumo wrestling at World's Strongest Man, and basically just scared the opponent out of the circle instead of actually having to fight them, because he couldn't fight them, so he just had to use his aura to scare them out of the way, essentially. Bill Kazmaier, for me, is the best strongman that we've ever seen. It really does annoy me that we didn't get to, like, I don't know why, but it really annoys me that they didn't have him in the rest of the competitions. Like, it's so stupid, because obviously back then, and in hindsight, it's very different, but they didn't know what strongman would go on to become and how much it would grow into a regal sport. But they had an opportunity to create the greatest strongman of all time and have something that's so ridiculous of, titles and everything, so ridiculous to try and beat, that we would still be chasing it today. Don't get me wrong, Zydrunas is the greatest strongman of all time, but for me, Bill Kazmaier is the strongest strongman of all time, the strongest man to walk the planet. I truly believe that. He said it himself, and I back it. I've met him as well. Cool guy, nice guy. Anyway, guys, that finishes my ranking. I'm not even really ranking, I'm just talking about the 1980s. Boy, it's great fun, isn't it? I literally just set my camera up, put my little microphone on. I've put the little muffler on today as well, guys, because somebody said my audio is crap. Look, these, right? DJI Mic Mini, right? Expensive bit of kit. Not as expensive as they once were. I think I paid 140. I think they're 80 quid now, but still. Expensive bit of kit. So I was really quite upset when somebody said that my audio is crap. So if you don't fucking like it, fuck off. Anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in Iceland. Make sure you tune in for the Iceland videos, guys. They're going to be so fucking good. Bye.